Hello my friends, my name is Kale, and today we're going to be breaking down everything that we know about Borderlands 4 and just some general Gearbox news. So we're talking brand new planet, new Vault Hunters, high-tech loot, you got speculation, confirmed details, and even a few things that we don't really want to see in Borderlands 4. So whether you're here for a game breakdown or just looking for the latest on the release date or Gearbox news, I've done my due diligence. I sat through the entire PAX panel and did as much research as I physically could for this video.
There we go. Wow, holy bananas, there are a lot of people here.
Before I start though, it is important to note, let me know in the comments if I have any incorrect information on any of this, because I'm only human. So what's going on with Gearbox right now? Take-Two Interactive has acquired Gearbox Entertainment for $460 million in an all-stock deal. Take-Two is a massive publisher, owns three major publishing labels, Rockstar Games, which brought you GTA, Zignia, a little lesser known, but they created Farmville and Draw Free and basically any mobile game that you've played, Words with Friends, all that kind of stuff. And of course the third being 2K. So with these newfound significant resources, this means future Borderlands games will 100% benefit from larger budgets, higher production values, and stronger marketing pushes as a whole. The image that I put on screen is just a bit about the divested assets. This refers to the part of Gearbox that the Embracer Group has sold off to Take-Two, including the Borderlands franchise. This means that Borderlands is now entirely under the control of Take-Two, giving them full rights to develop, publish, and expand the series however they see fit. So Gearbox, while still involved in development, will no longer have ownership of the Borderlands IP. Randy Pitchford, Gearbox's CEO, and Take-Two CEO Stratus Zelnick specifically mentioned that the acquisition was mutually beneficial for long-term growth. This suggests that the core creative team at Gearbox will still have significant input and control over Borderlands, but they'll essentially have more money to work with the interest of turning Borderlands into an even bigger franchise. It is safe to assume that the universe will expand with far more ambitious post-launch support. We could even see more spin-off games like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, or even new potential sequels, DLCs, and expansions, really. And even based entirely on the handling of ongoing support for GTA 5, we could say Borderlands 4 could be kept alive and evolving for years after its release. I do want to bring up Randy Pitchford though. Over the years, he's tended to get himself into a bit of trouble and swears by his life that the movie is exceptional, even going as far as comparing it to the Beatles. I'm not kidding. In 2019, Wade Callender, the former general counsel for Gearbox, I believe he was, filed a lawsuit against Gearbox accusing Randy of leaving a USB drive at a restaurant that allegedly contains sensitive company data and inappropriate material. Additionally, the lawsuit claimed that Pitchford had personally taken a $12 million bonus intended for Borderlands 2 from parent company. Pitchford claimed that the pornographic film on the USB drive was in fact not underage, and stated that he had saved the pornography for the purpose of studying a sexual act performed by the female actress that he claimed to be similar to a magic trick. If you look up his Wikipedia page, the first thing that comes up is just his history with magic. Gearbox stuff is all at the bottom, so you know what his priorities are, I guess. And then there was some history of trouble with Sega regarding Colonial Marines, I believe the game is called. Sega brought in Gearbox to help finish the game on time, but the final product was nothing like what was promised, so a lot of people were disappointed as the game became a total critical and commercial failure. Things only got worse when an anonymous whistleblower alleged that Randy Pitchford diverted the funds Sega had provided the game to instead support the Borderlands team, which is kind of sketchy. Good for Borderlands fans, but also bad business deal. Even Borderlands 3 faced controversy under Pitchford's leadership. It was revealed during development that Dave Eddings, the voice actor for Claptrap, would not be returning to voice the character. While Pitchford initially claimed that it was a mutual decision, Eddings later stated that he refused the role because he wasn't paid for the performance. In addition to the pay dispute, Eddings stated that Gearbox CEO had physically assaulted him at GDC 2017, and Pitchford immediately went to Twitter to defend himself, saying that Eddings was just bitter about having been terminated and the actor had refused the compensation they offered. So really, it's he said, she said, who knows? Randy also has faced controversy regarding the financial practices at Gearbox. The company operates on a profit-sharing model, where employees are paid the minimum salary but receive large bonuses when a game is successful. This usually works well since Gearbox titles tend to sell well. However, Borderlands 3 was more expensive to produce and reportedly underperformed in sales compared to expectations. So initially, Gearbox told the employees that they could expect a 6-figure bonus, but later had to backtrack when it became clear that that wasn't feasible. And Pitchford told employees that they were free to leave the company if they were unhappy with the situation. And I think that's just an alleged situation. Randy also sparked controversy with the handling of Duke Nukem. Bobby Prince is the composer for iconic games like Doom and Wolfenstein. He also created the music for Duke Nukem, and under a royalty agreement that promised him $1 for every game sold, Gearbox, when they acquired the rights and released the 20th anniversary edition, Prince didn't receive any royalties and sued the company for unpaid dues. Prince even provided evidence showing that the music's copyright belonged to him, and Pitchford initially claimed that he would resolve the issue, but Gearbox later sued 3D Realms, accusing them of not disclosing that the music was part of the deal when the rights were sold. Which, I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. Randy Pitchford has become a lightning rod for controversy, frequently landing himself and Gearbox in difficult situations, whether it's payment disputes, Twitter arguments, or accusations of missing funds. Pitchford has drawn suspicion around what goes on at Gearbox, and his actions have clearly tarnished the company's reputation to a certain degree among players and the wider gaming community. Now let's actually move on to what you're here for. Let's talk about the world building for a second of Borderlands 4. We're on a whole new planet. Gearbox says that this is going to be the most diverse and colorful game that they've ever made, so we can expect environments way different from Pandora's Wastelands. You've likely seen these art concepts because Gearbox likes to repost them all over their social medias like Instagram, Twitter, etc. The trailer shows the moon Elpis hitting what they classified themselves as a cloaking device. The story does pick up right after Lilith teleports Elpis at the end of Borderlands 3. But what I find really interesting is the devs mentioned that the inspiration came from watching an icebreaker ship plow through ice. I really like that reference. It's probably irrelevant, but I just thought it was cool. So we're just gonna jump straight into what actually is happening. There won't be any multiverse stuff in play, which I'm excited about. I hate multiverse stuff. We're just exploring a part of space that no one's ever seen before, essentially uncharted territory. And since we're on a new planet, Gearbox says they're going all in on futuristic tech, so we can expect to see new tech, weapons, and environments that pertain to the story. They mentioned that the meteors in the trailer are not just for show. They play a huge role in the story. The Gearbox hasn't exactly told us how yet. There are 2 hidden messages shown at the end of the trailer, however, and they're written using symbols. Assuming myself that it's like Iridian language. They say break free and he is watching. What exactly do we know about the Iridians? Borderlands 3 gave us a bunch of lore through collectible tablet system, like how sirens can choose who to give their powers to or let it find its own host. And that's ultimately how we got Siren Ava, unfortunately. The vault housing the destroyer in Borderlands 1 was a feeding hole, and the key recharged every 200 years because that's just what it just needed to be fed every 200 years. Just kind of subtle lore like that came from the tablets, which I can appreciate, and it kind of sets up a good story for Borderlands 4 if we are dealing with Iridians. The Watcher from the pre-sequel, if you remember, warned Lilith about a war coming that would need all the Vault Hunters.
Now is not the time for bickering, Vault Hunters. War is coming, and you will need all the Vault Hunters you can get.
But this doesn't come into play in Borderlands 3. A bunch of Vault Hunters don't even show up, let alone the Watcher. The big Guardian final boss in the pre-sequel also shows Jack the Warrior. Maybe the Guardians are planning to wage a war across the whole universe. Maybe Borderlands 4 will give us the big war that we were promised. They also teased a new villain for Borderlands 4. And this time, they claim they're going darker and more sinister. We have absolutely no details yet, but it sounds like the stakes are going to be higher than ever. It has been speculated at times that Handsome Jack would return due to an image of like a crooked vault symbol, I believe. but it has, to my knowledge, been confirmed by Randy on Twitter that it is not the case. There's not really a whole lot to go off of with Jack anyways. They kind of laid him and his empire to rest in the Borderlands 3 Hyperion Casino DLC. So what do we actually know about the gameplay and the Vault Hunters in Borderlands 3? There are 4 new playable Vault Hunters, and while they'll stick to familiar classes, Gearbox said they're shaking things up on the panel. They mentioned fantasy fulfillment a lot. Some of what I say is direct quotes mixed with my own interpretation. We really didn't get a whole lot of information on the panel. A lot of what they said was kind of just, trust me bro, it's going to be cool, trust me. But I cannot emphasize enough, they really go on and on about fantasy fulfillment. And a lot of what I'm going to say here is kind of mixed with direct quotes and my own interpretation. Typically, each Vault Hunter is built around fantasy fulfillment. The Soldier fantasy started with Roland, moved to Axton, and they changed it up with Mose. We've also seen how Sirens speak to the Mage and Sorcery fantasy. But with Amara, they've kind of flipped that concept, making her more physical and melee focused, instead of Maya's long-range magic. Gearbox has said they want to expand on how players interact with their characters, and Amara's fourth skill tree in Borderlands 3 is a great example. This tree added more action skill management, where you could move her phase ball around instead of just using fire and forget abilities. It's about offering different levels of complexity in how you play. They want to make sure that the action skills affect how the characters play and influence their personalities. Another big change for Borderlands 4 is putting Vault Hunters inside the cutscenes. This will essentially make it feel like the player is pushing the story along, giving us more control about how things play out. There will be a ton of new characters in the game, but we're also going to see, and I quote, a few familiar faces return. So essentially we're crossing our fingers for a good balance of new people and old favorites. During the panel, they were joking. They were like, they hinted at, maybe this will be the Borderlands where left-handed guns finally make it in, but one of the devs quickly followed up with a very unenthusiastic, so I wouldn't count on that one just yet. So what is the release date? There's a bit of speculation about it. I know there's like a dice box that people got at PAX, I believe. But I'm not well versed on this part. I couldn't find much information about it. But there's like a secret code on this box, and it kind of led some to speculate that it could be released like August 29th. Take that with a grain of salt. I couldn't find enough information on this theory. But the general consensus is a bit different. Most signs point to Borderlands 4 being released between September 28th, 2025 and January 1st, 2026. And that basically aligns with Take-Two's fiscal year in 2026, so it's likely that we'll see the game launch in the fall of 2025. It's a pretty wide window, but my guess would be October. Let's talk about where you'd actually be able to play Borderlands 4. It is confirmed that the game will be available on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC through Epic and Steam. It will not be coming to old-gen consoles, which is honestly a good thing. By dropping support for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, Gearbox is freeing Borderlands 4 from the hardware limitations that Borderlands 3 had to deal with. This means the game will take full advantage of the latest hardware, allowing for far better performance, more detailed environments, and just an overall smoother experience. Another big feature is actually cross-platform play. Gearbox has built their own cross-play infrastructure for Borderlands 4, so you can play with your friends regardless of what platform they are on. Whether you're on PC, console, whatever, you'll be able to team up and take on the world together. And here's the technical backbone. Borderlands 4 is being built on Unreal Engine 5. This engine is capable of delivering insane visuals and faster load times, which should make this probably the most visually impressive Borderlands game to date. So even with Unreal Engine 5, we can expect highly detailed environments and smoother gameplay across the board entirely. To bring up whatever I can about the movie.
And Jiminy Christmas, it's atrocious. It doesn't matter your take on the Borderlands series, if you love the games, if you hate the games. If you see this movie, you will hate it. It is just bad across the board, regardless of your taste.
Just kind of talking about the connections of the movie in Borderlands 4. There has been some speculations that Borderlands 4 was hinted at in the movie's promotional material. In one of the title screens, the A in Borderlands overlaps with the L. And some fans believe that this could be like a subtle nod to the upcoming fourth game. It's not a solid confirmation, but you know, Borderlands loves its Easter eggs. Interestingly, Randy Pitchford revealed in an interview with Epic Games that the second draft of the Borderlands movie was so good that it actually ended up influencing the game they were working on at the time, so likely Borderlands 4. This crossover, though, between the movie and the game might mean we might see some similar themes, story elements, or characters sneak their way into Borderlands 4. As for characters that can appear, there's speculation about a few names. We might see Larry, I believe he's played by like Bobby Lee, Atlas, CEO, and arguably probably the most interesting one is Commandant Knox return in Borderlands 4. These characters could bring some new dynamics to the story, but I think the only one that people really care about is Commandant Knox. To quickly touch on a couple of comments that the developers made, the team at Gearbox is confident about Borderlands 4. One of the speakers boldly stated, "Confidently, we are making the best Borderlands game to date," and that is a huge claim, especially given how beloved some of the previous games were, but it just shows how much faith that they have in this project. The developers working on Borderlands 4 aren't new to the franchise either. They mentioned that collectively the staff has around 100 years of experience working on Borderlands games, and that's a ton of combined expertise working on Borderlands. One claim that they made is that they start working on the next Borderlands game almost immediately after finishing the last one. So with this, we can say that Borderlands 4 has been in production for 5 years, because I believe that's when Borderlands 3 actually came out. So it's probably safe to assume 5 years is how long it's been in development. I'm sure I can quickly Google that, but as they've put it, we started working on the next Borderlands game literally hours after we shipped the previous one, and that's a lot of dedication. They do say they want to keep the excitement high for players, and they keep saying we want to make sure people are pumped at looking at cool things. Interesting statement, but that is a clear visual focus, right? A clear focus on the visual appeal, to be exact. They talked a little bit about community feedback and internal ideas. Gearbox, and I quote, is also paying close attention to the feedback that they received from the Borderlands community. We've gotten some very clear messaging from the community, and this is a good sign that they're not just making the game for themselves, but also listening to what we want as players. At the same time, though, there's a lot of debate within the studio about what Borderlands is and what it should be, one of the devs said. In Gearbox, there are a ton of different ideas of what Borderlands is and what it should be. This likely means that we'll see a blend of old ideas as the team tries to balance player expectations with their own artistic vision. Each Borderlands game has had a distinct theme, and the team outlined how this has evolved. Borderlands 1 was a treasure hunt, Borderlands 2 was a revenge story, and Borderlands 3 was a race to the vault. For Borderlands 4, they want to bring it back to the players, making the Vault Hunters the central focus of the story again. They also want the world in Borderlands 4 to be more reactive and grounded, whatever that means. And while the series is known for its humor, the developers said they want it to feel more natural and situational this time around, allowing it to emerge from the world rather than be forced. And we've seen this a lot in Borderlands 3 with just some jokes not hitting at all. If you've ever heard of the YouTuber Joltz dude, like 139 I believe his name is, I want to quickly address some of the things that he said in a video. If there's one fan whose opinions I trust most, it's definitely Joltz dude. He's got a video breaking down 10 things he doesn't want to see in Borderlands 4, and honestly, some of them I couldn't agree more with, but I just want to quickly run through his list because these are all pretty spot on points for the most part. First up, mayhem modifiers. There were so many bad ones in Borderlands 3 that it just made the gameplay frustrating. Sometimes you just want to fight regular enemies, but these modifiers took away from the core experience entirely. Next, annoyments or enchantments. So enchantments being like from Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Farming these was incredibly annoying. Some were overpowered while others felt useless, making the grind frustrating instead of rewarding. Then there's the slot machine mentality. There were so many part combinations that it felt like you were pulling a lever and hoping for a jackpot. Some parts had such an insane drop chance that you might as well forget about finding them. The sluggish intro was another issue. The first playthrough was fine, but after that the intro just dragged on and it slowed down the gameplay and made things feel more repetitive. Faster equipment unlocking. Why is equipment unlocked halfway through the story? Faster equipment unlocking is something that we probably all want. Unlocking gear too late makes inventory management frustrating, and it makes the whole experience less fun. If a player has 4 guns and only 2 slots to use it, they're still going to use those 4 guns. It's just going to be a little bit more annoying to have to go into your inventory and switch those out. One thing that I might not totally agree with is Joel's dude said that there's too many levels. There were way too many levels in Borderlands 3, which led to unnecessary grinding. Players are always going to farm the best XP source anyway, so there's no need for the over-the-top level caps. Keep things reasonable, which I agree with, right? Like Borderlands 2, you play it enough, you do your Salvador training range XP glitch, or your like Warrior Vault rack XP glitch. You'll figure out XP glitches, and with the newer games, there's less and less of them as technology kind of advances. The seventh one would be item forging. Item forging, not a fan. It kind of kills the farming aspect, which is what Borderlands is all about. Spending time reforging parts takes away from the loot grind we love, which I totally agree with that one. Like, I'd rather farm weapons myself than spend like hours at a table pressing a button. Immune phases. We've got immune phases. They just waste time. There's a right way to do them and there's a wrong way. So like whether it's burrowing enemies, teleporting bosses, or anything that kind of just makes you sit there and wait. If these phases are necessary, at least give players something to do while they wait. My personal example from this would be Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Crabs are the most annoying thing ever because them going away and burrowing underground, it doesn't really add anything to the game, but it just adds more time that you have to sit there and wait, and it makes the game slower. And ultimately, I don't like a lot of the immune phases. There's a right way to do them and there's a wrong way to do them. Another big one is visual pollution. Sometimes you just can't see what's going on because the screen gets too cluttered with effects. Some people really like that. Some people love the elemental explosions all over the place. But I think just adding a slider or something to be able to tone it down or up, because getting blinded during a fight does get a little bit frustrating. Number 10, and the one that I agree with the most, is cosmetic duplicate protection. Having your lost loot filled up with duplicate cosmetics is super annoying, right? Like going and farming something saying, hey, there's a new cosmetic, and then you look at it and it's like, oh, already unlocked. I'm finding that really frustrating as I'm playing through Tiny Tina's Wonderlands over and over and over again, because there's a lot of cosmetics in that game. And there just needs to be a system in place that prevents you from getting the same cosmetic over and over. Here's a bonus point that I thought was funny. Under his breath at the end of the video, he just said Ava. And I think we can all agree on this. I personally don't like Ava. I don't like how she took Maya's powers. I don't like that that's who replaced Maya. It just, I don't know. It just makes me mad. I don't like Ava. I don't like her character. And that's something that we're just going to have to deal with, because Borderlands 4 might have Ava, right? Alongside Joltz dude, though, I got a few additional thoughts on what needs to change for Borderlands 4. These are things that could seriously improve the experience and keep the game from getting frustrating. Save quit farming has to go. It's outdated and it takes away from the flow of the game. There has to be a better way to farm without constantly restarting the game just to refresh a boss fight. And it's more so annoying for console players that have longer load screen times. Like, as I switched to PC to play Borderlands games, I've realized, like, holy, boss fighting isn't as bad. Because, like, I load in like less than 5 seconds. For console, like, I would have like 20-second load times sometimes, and it just really took away from it. Scaling also needs to be handled better. In some cases, of Borderlands enemies would scale so out of control that it can just make the best gear feel weak. So we need scaling that makes the game challenging and not frustrating. And could we please get rid of repetitive yapping NPCs? You know what I'm talking about? Things like, the lava's rising, repeated over and over. It just kind of kills the immersion and becomes background noise that you just want to tune out. I also think that we need a stats tracker. Things like how many bosses you've killed, bullets fired, or hours played would be awesome to have. It's always satisfying to see those numbers add up, especially in a game all about grinding and loot. And a lot of the time, a lot of people, their main point of bragging is like how much you've played this game and how long, and sometimes it would just be nice to be able to see all the information of what we do in the game, and even probably help Gearbox with collecting data and see what's popular and what's not popular and stuff like that. One thing that could be super fun is adding character launching mechanics back, like grenade launch or rocket jumps, specifically like Salvador or Bada-Boom jumping. Like, it doesn't have to be game breaking, but the ability to just launch yourself with grenades, that would be a whole thing that I would absolutely replay the game for. Like, that's hands down one of the best parts of number 2 is just Salvador launching. It just adds a whole new layer of movement and strategy to the combat, which lets us navigate the environment in all sorts of different creative ways. We gotta talk about skippable cutscenes and dialogue too. Like, replaying through the game should be smoother, and there's no reason to force players to sit through long dialogue sections or cutscenes for the 10th time, really. Anyways, my friends, after having said all that, I think that marks the end of the video. I'm going to continue to stay up to date on what's happening with Borderlands 4, but even right now, we don't know a lot. We know nothing at all. During their PAX presentation, they ended it because, and I quote, okay, we're getting into spoiler territory, we got to cut it short. But really, we know very little, if anything, at all. But I hope my video kind of helped you, provide you some insight, or even helped you believe in Borderlands again, because I want to believe in this game. I want to believe that this is going to be good, and I'm hoping for it to be good, and I'm going to play it regardless, because this is my series, this is my franchise. I love this franchise more than anything. It's my bread and butter, and it is a lot of other people's favorite too, so I hope they do it well, because this is kind of bordering their last chance, right? If this is bad, then really what respect do we have left for Gearbox? Anyways, that's going to do it. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.